Do you remember last week when I put out an additional fantasy news to try and cut off having to cover any big industry drama here? Turns out the gods saw that and decided, Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy Schnoos. I am your disheveled goblin host, Daniel Green, and today we are just going to go ahead and kick things up with some industry cleanup because that is right, we have had what I would consider to be the final fallout from the Hugo debacle we have been covering here in this video. In this video, if you want full context on how certain people involved were just the worst and like there was censorship on behalf of the Chinese government with maybe them not even having to like ask it to be there. It's insane. But as a result, not only has this scandal been picked up by major news outlets, but we are now seeing something I think most people could see coming, but that is our first winners come forward and say, hey, I'm going to be rescinding my Hugo victory. The one that came across my desk this morning is a post from Samantha Mills, the author of Rabbit Test, and she has a blog post that goes over just a lot of what happens, but the gist of what she is getting at can be summed up here when she says, the way things currently stand, I don't think I can fully consider myself a Hugo winner. As I said, barring another rug pull, good Lord please no, I think that I was voted the winner of the published final list, and I remain grateful for that. But unless somebody comes along with information that nomination numbers were not the final tallies, and I would have been there after all, or some analysis showing that those works would have been ineligible or moved to other categories anyway, barring those unlikely circumstances, I have to consider my award ill-gained. I spent this morning logging into my various accounts and taking Hugo out of my bio. There are almost certainly going to be places it was printed that I missed, so my apologies for that. Here's the most embarrassing one. My novel already went to the printer, and it has Hugo winner on the cover. Effing mortifying. It's a holiday weekend, and I don't like to nag people on their days off. So on Tuesday, I'll send a very awkward email to my agent and editor summarizing the situation and figure out the logistics of removing Hugo winner from the ebook and future printings. The first print run will be a limited edition novelty, I suppose. Jeez. And this just absolutely sucks, right? But what I can say to hopefully add a somewhat silver lining is, Samantha Mills, this speaks incredibly to your character. I have so much respect for someone doing this, and at least from here at the Goblin Horde, we think you are really fucking cool. And if by any chance Samantha Mills does end up coming across this video, if we can just get some nice words for her in the comments down below, you are officially a queen here among the Goblin Horde. We absolutely respect this because not only are you acknowledging what happened in the Hugo Awards, but taking a stand that sends a message about this kind of behavior not being tolerated, that takes integrity. Oh, that's gonna be the saddest thing we see all day. Wrong. The soul of creativity is dying, and we're gonna talk about that too. Because we got a press release from the fuck me, God. You know what? From Business Wire, the headline reads, IWoT and D1 Srupt 1 join forces as true source to unleash AI magic on the Wheel of Time. Private beta now available. Today, IWoT Productions unveiled a new collaboration with D1 Srupt 1, an AI software pioneer, to form True Source, a joint venture company on a mission to transform Robert Jordan's acclaimed The Wheel of Time series into the first ever AI-enabled entertainment franchise. The company's AI service will be branded as One Power and will energize an array of products and services that will extend, expand, and enhance the franchise's current and future media formats, including books, television, movies, video games, and location-based entertainment. We're going to get into all the different reasons why this makes me want to physically be ill, but I want to just say, not calling it AI Sedai? What's wrong with you? It's right there. The fruit is so low hanging, it's got a bit of dirt on it. We have a quote here from Rick Selvage that spews out, "Today's trailblazing partnership with D1 Srupt is at the forefront of an AI revolution in the entertainment industry. The One Power will give rise to a new generation of products and services that will reshape the industry, setting the stage for a future where AI is seamlessly integrated into all facets of entertainment experiences and becomes an essential part of how we consume connected media." That was just so much word jargon that we've seen like copy and pasted so many different places recently. Like, we're D1 Srupt one. We're gonna change the industry. The first product to channel the One Power is the The Guide, TrueSource's revolutionary personal digital companion that serves as the gateway to a comprehensive AI-powered database encompassing the entire Wheel of Time universe. Today, the Guide is fluent in 40 languages and able to understand more than 100. This language capability will be expanded to dozens of other languages, including the Old Tongue from the Wheel of Time. The Guide will draw upon... You're calling it The Guide when there are so many books and things within the Wheel of Time. Whatever, they don't care. They're just putting some shit together to create an unparalleled franchise experience, inviting users to delve into every aspect of the world with extraordinary depth and personalization. Maybe I'm just reading it all wrong. Let's try and give it a more positive spin for this next bit of information, shall we? The One Power will energize products and service from TrueSource and third parties with interactive features that will immerse users into the Wheel of Time universe. From the rustic charm of the Two Rivers to the splendor of the White Tower, and from the marvels of the Age of Legends to the desperation of the Last Battle, One Power will elevate the journey for fans of Robert Jordan's. No, it won't. You cannot elevate above Robert Jordan's original telling of the Wheel of Time with AI. That is so insulting to say. One Power will adapt to unique circumstances of each user, such as age, language, and familiarity with the Wheel of Time. By harnessing these insights, products and services using One Power can serve both seasoned readers of Jordan's books and newcomers recently introduced to the franchise through the Sony Amazon television series and previously announced live action and animated movies, video games, and immersive experiences. Through the use of cutting-edge AI technology, One Power will bring the Wheel of Time to life in exciting new ways, including expanded interactive applications, comprehensive reference guides, AI-integrated products and services, advanced gaming experiences, artistic okay. Age-appropriate and spoiler-free options, and personalized experiences.
What you got is a whole lot of nothing.
You know what one of my favorite parts of being a fantasy sci-fi fan is? When you're having a conversation with other fans about the Wheel of Time, and they go, "Nah, I'm gonna check my AI-powered reference guide to prove you wrong, because it's what the AI tells me is right about this, and it's factually correct. You can't interpret the art anymore. I have a reference guide that's powered by AI, and they didn't call it AI Sedai." I knew this was going to be coming. I knew we were going to see AI just spewing of artwork and content for various franchises, and it's already had seeds elsewhere. But the fact that we're seeing D1 Srupt one be like, oh, we're going to change the industry by lobbing on to Robert Jordan's series and just pumping out a bunch of gobbledygook jargon. It hurts. It hurts. And we as Wheel of Time fans have already been hurt. But you know what? We're already getting kicked while we're down. So why not make it us and not anyone else? The saving grace to all of this is it's coming from IWoT. IWoT is Red Eagle Entertainment rebranded. And everything I'm going to say from here on out, I want to be clear, is my personal opinion. In my personal opinion, leeches that glommed on to the Wheel of Time series a long time ago and have just made a career, I guess, out of releasing press announcements that I've been guilty of falling for over the years that very rarely amount to anything. This is why a few years ago you heard me here talking about live action movies, things along those lines. IWoT just gets people involved, gets exciting headlines out there, and then very little to nothing comes of it. And after actually reading through this full article a couple of times, basically it says nothing. This is purely a press release, get attention thing from a bunch of media whores. So if you're interested, the reason Wheel of Time fans typically have a problem with Red Eagle Entertainment is they are a company that in the days before the Game of Thrones adaptation, they managed to purchase the rights to adapt Wheel of Time from Robert Jordan. A fair enough deal, and that's fine. They got him dirt cheap because you could back then, even for a best-selling series, but cool. They then did terrible things. Not only was there an first-person shooter video game, but they then, just to retain the rights, in the span of a few weeks, cobbled together a to-be-aired on FX at 3 a.m. in the morning piece of shit live action interpretation of the prologue that was clearly entirely just made to retain these rights. There is no actual attempt at quality beyond this, and it's very comparable to the situation of that Fantastic Four movie that got made purely to retain the rights that everyone memes on for being so bad. They then, since then, have managed to glom their name onto the show, and this is their latest attempt to take what little rights they have left and try and just flex them for possible monetization and profit. Just to make it clear, this pilot for Winter's Dragon was made so shadily that Harriet McDougal, Robert Jordan's widow, had to release a statement where she talked about not being informed this was being created. Robert Jordan's entire estate was not made aware of this project. When talking about his experience working with Red Eagle Entertainment, Robert Jordan is known to have said, "You see, among other things, they forgot the old dictum of LBJ, back when he was just a congressman for Texas, when he famously or infamously said, 'Don't spit in the soup, boys. We all have to eat.' Worse, Red Eagle, though, they could tell me they spit in the soup, or pee in it, if they wanted to, and there wasn't anything I could do to stop them. You can't apologize your way out of that with me. Not that they tried. There isn't enough money in the world to buy your way out of it with me. Not that they tried that either. So they get no further help from me. Once they are completely out of the picture, we'll see what happens." I think something tangible will come from this. Will it actually be industry changing and D1 swept one? No. Which, I'm going to be perfectly honest, in my opinion, all we're seeing from IWoT, Red Eagle Entertainment, is they're just trying to pimp out whatever last little itty bitty rights they have aligned with the Wheel of Time franchise, because they're just desperate to continue to leech off of an already mediocre success of the franchise being adapted and getting hype right now. And to anyone from IWoT watching this, here's what I want you to hear from me. I hope you enjoyed that. It came from within. That was a lot. And I'm going to be honest, I need some more positive news. Patrick Leo, can I get some? Yes, we can, because Patrick Leo is coming with a crazy awesome cover reveal. And just to soothe my little soul here, it's got a big, bad ass dragon on it. The Fall of Giants by Gregory Contaxis, with cover art by me Blart. That's a wonderful Twitter handle. And the book's even going to have an interior art illustration by Omir Barakonal. I hope I'm saying that even close to right. This is the second book in the Dance of Light series, and what I will say in review of this cover, what I believe from my heart, is that there will be fads in the cover game that come and go. Styles will rise and fall, but having a big, sexy dragon on the cover is never going to go out of style. And oh my god, look at glowing sword. Yeah, it's cliche. Yeah, it's a bit of a trope. You know what it also is? Sexy. Okay, that made me feel a lot better. I like just putting some dragons in the video. What's the next news? Is it happy? In a story that was sent to me just as frequently as the Hugo Awards debacle, we had Spotify ruffling some feathers amongst the narrator audiobook author crowd, because we have seen them update their terms of service, and there was some wording that made certain people's ears go, it's like ears like pricking up, you know what I mean? We're all book fans. We've all heard the little descriptor where it's like, oh, their ears perked up because they heard someone, which no one actually ever does. You don't hear someone say something and then you're in the middle of a room and go, Like, that's not what you do. But it communicates the act of like, oh, it caught my attention. I mean, I guess elves, that could be like a feature of elves. I just don't think, I'm going to pay attention now. I'm going to say some shocking stuff. I'm going to see if people's ears move. I don't think they will. Goblins, I'm about to read legal jargon to you. And I want you to know, I'm well aware, not the most entertaining thing to hear. So, I'm gonna bring in a ringer.
You retain ownership of your user content when you post it to the service. However, in order for us to provide the service to you, we do need a limited license from you to that user content. Accordingly, you hereby grant Spotify a non-exclusive, transferable, sub-licensable, royalty-free, fully paid, irrevocable, worldwide license to reproduce, make available, perform and display, translate, modify, create derivative works from, such as transcripts of user content, distribute, and otherwise use any such user content through any medium, whether alone or in combination with other content or materials, in any manner and by any means, method, or technology, whether now known or hereafter created, in connection with the service, the promotion, advertising, or marketing of the service, and the operation of Spotify's and its successors and affiliates, business, including for systems and products management, improvement and development testing, training, modeling, and implementation in connection with the Spotify service. Where applicable and to the extent permitted under the applicable law, you also agree to waive and not to enforce any moral rights or equivalent rights, such as your right to object to derogatory treatment of such user content. Nothing in these terms prohibits any use of the user content by Spotify that may be taken without a license.
Oh, you did such a good job. Thank you, baby. Now, to an untrained legal mind or someone who didn't bother looking at actually educated comments about this matter, this might seem extreme across the board. But there are some things in here that are fairly reasonable, and Spotify has slightly modified the language since the original pushback. But there are still things in here that I would chalk up to a big-ass overreach. The big issue is the part that allows them to reproduce, create derivative works from, and modify your writing, your audiobook. That is far beyond anyone else in the game. I also personally have an issue with you also agree to waive and not enforce any moral rights or equivalent rights, such as your rights to object to derogatory treatment of such user content. What? And in a day and age of AI narration and things along those lines, where they're going to be trying to push all their audiobooks all over the place and all these translations, it seems like Spotify is getting ready to try and do something big and bad. And as someone who was hoping Spotify could come into this space as a decent alternative to Audible, this sours that taste, that little... No, I'm not tasting good anymore. I am not a legal expert. There are far smarter people than me that are going to have comments on this. The opinion I have formulated is from looking at those smarter people and seeing what they had to say. More experienced minds. And I don't like it. It's bad. Do I have any kind of like solution? Nope. I can just say thank you to this person for kind of bringing this to everyone's attention. You're awesome and your TikTok was great. Spotify is literally like, yeah, put your audiobook on our platform so we can do stuff to it. And do you remember way back when we covered Evil Genius Games versus Netflix? We were kind of on the side of Evil Genius Games. I made sure to remark, like, we haven't heard from Netflix. We don't know their side of this, but it certainly looks bad right now. We've now gotten an update, a bit of deep dive journalism, something I want to call genuine journalism from inworld.org here. It pulls dates, all kinds of sources. This is a great bit of investigation. This accumulated in an article called The Rise and Fall of Evil Genius Games. And it alleges not only terrible mismanagement from Evil Genius Games, it gives some validity to Netflix being like, no. And would you guess it? It also alleges some worker mistreatment on behalf of Evil Genius Games. I just wanted a good guy, small company versus the big company story. And that's not what it turned out to be. I'm going to go insane today. Important notes to talk about, though, in the Netflix v. Evil Genius Games. Again, if you want full coverage here, essentially Evil Genius Games was saying that Netflix had no right to pull out of their deal, despite Netflix saying that Evil Genius Games had overstepped in showing too much material they wanted to keep under wraps. Well, we've gotten more of Netflix's side of things, and it reads as follows. On November 1st, Netflix filed their answer to the complaint along with a counterclaim. The streaming company denied any claims that EGG's work had formed a basis for the movie's script or that it had approved the release of material at the GAMA presentation. Interestingly, EGG's initial filing claimed merely that it had sent the artwork in question to Netflix ahead of the event, and Netflix never voiced any issues whatsoever, thereby approving the artwork. A claim that on face of it appears that EGG Games had interpreted Netflix's silence as approval. Netflix further denied it had ever requested the creation of a World Bible again. EGG's suit claimed that defendants requested expressly or implied that plaintiff created a comprehensive World Bible. However, the streaming company did acknowledge that it claimed ownership of the Rebel Moon Bible, Player's Handbook, and Games Master's Guide, based on the original licensing agreement, which included the important provision that Netflix would own all works created by EGG related to or derived from Rebel Moon. Netflix's counterclaim provides additional details about the original licensing agreement, including the requirement that dissemination of marketing materials required multiple stages of approval and specific processes. Additionally, the filing alleges that EGG had offered the role-playing game for a pre-sale without Netflix's authorization, and had included unapproved marketing material on its own website, and even that they publicly played a video clip of one of Evil Genius's highly confidential working sessions with Mr. Snyder in a presentation at the GAMA trade show. Netflix also offered in evidence that, contrary to EGG's claims, that its work was used on a basis for movie elements. The first two Rebel Moon movies had actually finished production in December of 2022, months before the March 2023 licensing agreement with Evil Genius. Indeed, the counterclaim alleges the opposite, that the World Bible was a compilation of background details provided confidentially to EGG during a series of meetings with the film's director, Zack Snyder. The lawsuit did get settled, and the case was dismissed, and an unceremonious joint statement was published by EGG. I am still, not on Netflix's side. I've seen them pull some shady practices, in my opinion, and I don't believe everything they allege in this completely and openly, but there is so much other information alleged in here as well that it's oh yeah, definitely don't like Evil Genius games right now either. And when people ask me why do you get nervous about covering more serious stuff? Why do you occasionally wait on covering certain stories? Perfect example. I don't think I look great in my coverage of this over the time. I think I made mistakes and should have tried to stay more neutral. Even with this really well done write-up, in my opinion, that has all kinds of sources and statements from former employees, I do also want to wait a little bit before I get too far into it and hear a response from people in charge of EGG. I never want to be a source of misinformation, and I feel like I've come dangerously close to that here. Damn it, though. I want to end fantasy news with two positive stories. Are you a science fiction fan and a big-ass fan of great movies? Awesome, because Francis Ford Coppola, he has decided to take his first feature-length foray into science fiction. The infamous director Francis Ford Coppola, who, yes, is still alive to my surprise, is working on a project titled Megalopolis. And despite Coppola's long history of genre diversity, he has not made a feature-length science fiction film before. This is a project that apparently Francis Ford Coppola has been talking about since the 1980s, but has finally been set in motion with a $120 million budget and names like Adam Driver attached. The story is described as an epic sci-fi drama set in New York that follows Julia, Sergio, Natalie Emanuel, who is divided between loyalties to her father, Frank, Forrest Whitaker, who has a classical view of society, and her lover, Caesar, Adam Driver, who has a progressive perspective and wants to rebuild the city as utopia after a devastating disaster. Coppola, science fiction, epic. I'm in. That's 3 ticks. That's doop. I am gonna be there for that. Does Francis Ford Coppola still got it? He certainly doesn't have a perfect career, but I'm still absolutely gonna be excited for a new sci-fi epic from the guy who brought us Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. But if that wasn't enough to make you feel a bit better after today's news, I have some wholesome, awesome science news that breaches on into the fantasy space, because the Mars Ingenuity helicopter has had its final resting place named after the Undying Lands from Lord of the Rings. Rings. NASA officials wrote on Monday, the Ingenuity team has nicknamed the spot where the helicopter completed its final flight, Valinor Hills, after the fictional location in J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy novels. A place of refuge for our cast of characters in The Lord of the Rings, I can think of few names more fitting for the final resting place for Ingenuity, and despite the tidal wave of poopy we got in this week's fantasy news, I'm leaving smiling. Thank you, NASA, for a bit of a smile, and now a quick bit of indie pub promo for a book written by a member of the Goblin Horde.
And next up for today's indie pub promo is A Contract in Sol Forne, Book 2 in the 8th Chant series, by Christopher Warman and Elon Mash. Pitched as, for fans who like standalone fantasy adventures featuring djinns, dangerous wishes, political factions, and militias. Valen is an ancient djinn on a quest to seek the artifact to which she is enslaved. Her centuries-long journey lands her in the port city-state of Sol Forne, where she is certain the artifact is held. There, she meets Doravan, a disaffected youth from a dissolved noble house. Though their initial connection is cursory, their bond becomes one that may endanger the entire cycle of nature. Check it out in the links down below.
Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Peace.